Steps to Literacy, the Jason Lin story. The first step to literacy were my childhood experiences. Books were always focused to me or taught to me as stepping stones of education. Literacy has always been a fundamental part of my life. My parents moved 16 months after my birth from Flushing, Queens, New York to Manalapan, New Jersey, because they both agreed that education is the most important thing that they could provide for me and my older sister. When they were looking for a place to move, they settled on Manalapan, New Jersey because at the time, new developments centered around the Monmouth County Headquarters Library were being built. To this day, the Monmouth County Headquarters Library is the largest library in Monmouth County and is the centerpiece of a system that includes smaller branches in Shrewsbury, Long Branch, Ocean, and Wall. The house that they built is a quick 10-minute, half-mile walk away from the library. As a child, my love for reading was forged on bi-weekly walks to the library for story time and to find new picture books for Mom to read to me. At first, these walks were my favorite because I was given 2 juice boxes, one coming to the library and one leaving the library, and 6 cookies, evenly divided like the juice, during the walk. Small incentives to reinforce the notion that the library was a good place. I always enjoyed listening to stories, and even more so when my mother let me pick out stories. I would go through the volumes of Arthur, Clifford, and Where's Spot books. From time to time, the elusive to find Richard Scarry books would become available. I loved the colors and pictures. Being able to pick what I liked was important for me. However, my mom did subtly direct me with her suggestions. I really loved the Ninja Turtles when I was 3 years old. That's when she introduced me to nonfiction. I wanted to know everything about turtles, and she would encourage my educational curiosity by asking me to find her a new turtle fact during each visit. In a way, this is how my mom Pavlovianly conditioned me to do research. By the time that I entered elementary school, this is the next phase of my journey, which is my K-12 education. By the time that I entered kindergarten, I already knew how to read simple books and was starting to understand how sounds and letters combine to make words. I was able to sound out new words and phonetically spell words that I knew but did not know how to spell. This enabled me to read above grade level and gave me the confidence necessary to grow up embracing reading and writing rather than fearing it. By first grade, I was reading Goosebumps, Bailey School Kids series, and sports biographies of my favorite players. I was constantly reading, partially out of curiosity and partially because I loved feeling and knowing that I could excel at something that most of my peers were still learning to do. Because my mom still encouraged me to read and go to the library, and because I was excelling at it, I was able to scaffold more of these simple phonic skills into more complicated ones such as spelling, vocabulary, and ultimately writing. While my peers were learning these skills, I was applying and perfecting them. Later on, I was able to further develop them and incorporate grammar as well. Now, at this point of the school year, summer vacation, when I was in first grade all the way up until 6th grade, the end of summer meant that in the mornings, my mom would give me summer school. We'd go through all of the grammar books that she kept from when she was a little kid. I learned gerunds, I learned parts of speech, I learned how to diagram sentences, and I wasn't allowed to have a snack, I wasn't allowed to watch TV or play video games or play with my friends until we finished our grammar lesson to her satisfaction. I think because my mom was so active in making sure that I did this, that's kind of what enabled me to grow. I did the whole Sadler Oxford Vocabulary Workshop books from 6th grade all the way up until 11th grade. And I really do think that there is merit behind these books. A lot of the words in the later books, E, F, G, and H, you'll find on the SATs. And I do use these in my classroom. I'll copy and paste, or I'll photocopy pages, and then I'll share them with my class to give them as a word list. Over time, the evolution of intrinsic motivation led to growth in reading and writing skills for me. What I mean by this is that when I was younger, I wanted to do well in school. So I would learn how to write, and I would further my reading in order to get good grades. Later on, I discovered girls. And so I decided to use my literacy to suit my needs. So reading came in the form of advice columns, self-help books online, and other interesting articles that made me interesting for girls. I also worked on honing my ability to write clearly, flirtatiously, my individual style through instant messaging. So again, all of these things helped to grow my confidence and contributed to my literacy. So it's not just the component that I would learn in school, but it's also how I found ways to apply it into my life. And I think that that's important in teaching literacy, especially to kids. To some extent, they'll want to do well in school, but they won't want to learn how to do something unless they could see how it will benefit them. When I moved on to college, I just kind of went through the motions of college up until my junior year. During my fall semester, my junior year, I was taking American Literature 2 with Professor Tom Pauly. I had very poor attendance in college up until that point. Simply put, I figured that as an English major, where most of my assignments and work was reading and then writing papers, I didn't necessarily need to go to class in order to do well. However, on the off chance that I did go to class, I would volunteer from time to time. So one day, during the midterm, Professor Pauly pulled me aside. I got an A on the midterm, and he told me that that's the grade that I earned, and then he showed me the grade that he gave me. He gave me a B minus, and at first I was upset. And then he just kind of looked at me and he told me specifically, he said, "Hey, remember that time that you actually showed up to class and we went outside and we had class on the steps and you volunteered?" And he said, and I said, "Yeah, I remember that." He's like, "Well, if you do have such a good command of literature, you're doing yourself and your classmates a disservice by keeping all that information to yourself." And for me, that was a turning point because here I was on the path of being an English education major, where my job is to help people understand, help develop ideas, help push the bounds of understanding, share knowledge, teach. Yet, in my own life, I wasn't doing that, and it was kind of hypocritical. And after that moment, I made the decision that, hey, if I really want to become a teacher, I needed to become a good student as well. And so that moment really changed the way I looked at education and the type of teacher that I wanted to be. The other most momentous thing for me in college that shaped my view on literacy was the summer job that I had my junior and senior year. It was with the Upward Bound program. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with the Upward Bound program, it's basically this mentoring program with at-risk or underprivileged high school students, and your job is to kind of mentor them in social skills and academically. And this kind of opened my eyes to the haves and the have-nots and the struggles that come with it. And being an English tutor during those years and seeing where they were coming from, I soon realized that maybe it's not necessarily the student's fault that they can't succeed. They need to be met halfway by the teacher, and in order to do that, the teacher needs to understand what they've been exposed to, how to reach them properly. And so those two experiences in college, my professor calling me out and participating in the Upward Bound program, it really opened my eyes to what it meant to teach literacy, why I wanted to be a teacher. And the main reason why I want to do that is because I do think that the most important thing that I can do is teach people how to first read something or listen to something and then know what to do with it, so that then they can make an educated statement or draw an educated conclusion and share that with the world, or defend themselves, or to ask for and get what they want or need in order to survive. So I took these idealistic ideas with me into my first couple of classrooms. My professional experiences. My first year out of college, I taught 7th and 8th grade. Then I moved on to the high school where I taught AP English. And then over the past 2 years of teaching high school, I've ended up teaching every single grade level. I've taught 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And what I learned from these experiences is that literacy means a lot. Well, obviously it means a lot, but it has a much different definition than what it meant for people like you and me growing up. These students have been around technology, so they have an over-reliance on it. They use it to find synonyms and antonyms for them. They use it to correct their spelling mistakes. A lot of them don't read because they're able to use Google to find the answer. They use the search feature in articles to find the answers that they want. And even though these are very cool hacks and shortcuts, they still are missing out on the bigger picture. So their idea of literacy isn't a full picture. It's not well-rounded. And I feel like it's my job as an educator to kind of show them how technology is just a tool that they can use, but they ultimately have to understand the skills behind it in order to use these skills right. So this is where I'm at today in my journey to become literate myself and promote literacy. I do believe that there's an importance to behaviorism, constructivism, and the bottom-up theory. What I mean by this is that I do think that it's important to reinforce good behavior from the beginning, to force students to learn the correct way before they start dabbling in with shortcuts. I also believe that there is merit behind constructivism, allowing them to use their experiences to shape their curiosity and their knowledge, and to build upon what they know and make it a stronger foundation to open their eyes based off of that because it's more meaningful for them. I do believe in the bottom-up theory. I do think that it's important to start from the bottom, teach them little by little until they're able to handle and understand more complex ideas. I also believe that it's important as an educator to remind yourself that literacy does not just mean the ability to read and write, it's the ability to understand and express yourself. For this reason, I have shifted my classroom into emphasizing reader response, Socratic seminars, Socratic thinking, and the research process. And with all of these things in mind, that's why I decided to take on the MED in reading and take these classes with you guys, because I feel that it is important to learn the proper way so that then you could teach the proper way.